You mentioned before about having a new investigation, but yet at the same time, you talk about us living in something similar to Nazi Germany. So how are we, or how is a new investigation going to take place? How's that going to happen?
Yeah, well, that's a challenge. Part of it, there's a New York City ballot initiative. They just got 30,000 signatures to create an independent investigation. I think one of the most important things to get is subpoena power. Now, right now, we have a rogue government which isn't recognizing subpoena power or even any jurisdiction besides they're ignoring the Supreme Court's decisions, right? And I'm actually running for Congress. I am running again.
In what district?
In the 14th district on a 9/11 truth impeachment peace platform. And Congress should have impeached these guys years ago.
They tried.
We know that. No, there wasn't that much effort. Cynthia McKinney did put forward articles of impeachment. So did Dennis Kucinich. McDermott signed on just yesterday. We're still trying to pressure, but we need a lot of pressure to get them to move forward on impeachment. This is one reason that I'm running for Congress, is that we need to be brave and force politicians to acknowledge this. Now, today, Jesse Ventura and State Senator Karen Johnson are both going to be speaking in Arizona. I also know that Jesse Ventura wants to run for president in 2012, and Karen wants to run for governor in 2010. So, if they're speaking out on 9/11 truth, and they're both planning on running for major offices, maybe they are going to be the courage to inspire other politicians to get on the bandwagon. When the politicians realize that the people are ahead of them, they try to jump to the head of the parade. Not always, but this is usually what happens. But there has to be enough of a groundswell for a politician to take a brave stance on an issue. This is the 9/11. There's so much resistance, and the resistance is worse.
You mean resistance against the truth?
And speaking out about it. The resistance we find about talking about 9/11, the biggest resistance is in the press, in the media, and with politicians.
And why do you suppose that is?
Well, the press doesn't want to lose their credibility, okay? The whole press has been pushing the official story for so long. They don't want to lose their credibility. There was a big cover story on 9/11 and us a while ago, and in the first page they just completely bash Barry Zwicker and I as conspiracy nuts. And then the rest of the article was, but there is something to what they say, and they presented our strongest evidence. But you could tell...
They kill the messengers.
You could tell, yeah, they did not want to be labeled conspiracy theorists. Although it was interesting, they used art, they used humor. On the cover of the San Francisco Guardian was a guy wearing a Dick Cheney mask, and it said, "I blew up the World Trade Center, ask me how." And it's like San Francisco, ground zero for the conspiracy theorists. And actually now, you know, it's the biggest smoking gun evidence we have that is acknowledged by all these rational, scientific, technological types is Building 7. NIST just came out with a report saying that fires brought down a 47 steel-framed building for the first time in history. Now, this is just absolutely ludicrous, insane. The only way they get away with that message is if people don't hear it, or it's just buried and repeated, you know, ad nauseum forever. Like the silver bullet theory that killed. It's sort of the silver bullet that the government is coming up with to explain Building 7, but it doesn't work for anyone who can look beneath the surface and look at the evidence. Now, there are people who need silver bullets because they're comfortable with silver bullets, and they want desperately to believe the government's story, and they'll cling to that. But everybody else who has a rational mind and who looks at the evidence are going to say bullshit and not believe it, and that's happening.
Well, if we don't, more than 3,000 people. I mean, the more we ignore it, I think, the more people will die.
It's hard, and the more invested you are in the dominant story, the harder it is to let it go.
Sure.
And change your life. I mean, it is transformational.
Right.
And as I said, to me it happened when I was 34 years old and I saw the film JFK, and it just transformed my life and put me on a different path. And I felt a great sense of responsibility. My husband still doesn't want to watch any of these documentaries or look at any of this.
Your husband doesn't agree with you?
Well, oddly enough, he's Canadian and he just applied for his American citizenship, and he'll become a citizen this month. But I don't think he felt the same sense of responsibility that I felt, because it was my government. So, and also before I saw that film, I did publicity. I was very successful in getting things on radio, television, newspapers. So the question was, well, why isn't this common knowledge? Why isn't it on radio, in the newspapers, on television? So I immediately became a media activist. And one of the first things that we have to educate people on is the problems with the media. And 9/11 in some ways exposes the media problems. Because if we had an honest media, we wouldn't have this lie hanging over clouding our reality for 7 years and being used to justify all these horrific wars and the destruction of our Constitution.
One more question is, what do you say to somebody who wants to explore alternative media and raise awareness on issues like this and on Iraq and other things?
Oh, we need to. Be creative, learn all those skills, do the best you can. Be the media. We have to be the media. We can't trust the corporate media. That's what I do, and I think we can trust one another those who are actually seeking truth and justice. It's really obvious when somebody's trying to sell a lie for corporate or military purposes, and when people are actually trying to find out what's true and real and support those who are being oppressed and injured and hurt. Questioning this event all over the world,